Friends, we gather together this morning to celebrate the life and to honor the memory of Cookie Morris. Cookie's family so very much appreciates your presence here with us this morning, which offers them a great deal of comfort and support.
Mismor David, Adonai roi lo echsar, Binot sheyabitzeni al memenuchot yanachaleni, Nafshi shovev, Yanacheni v'magle tzedek lema'an shemo, Gam ki helech b'yitzam avetz, Lo hirarak ki ata imadi. Shiftecha umishantecha emayinachamuni. Ta'aruch lefanai shulchan neged tzurirai. Di shanta vashemen roshi kosi revaya. Ach tov chesed yerdifuni kol yamei chayai. V'shaveti beveit Adonai le'orech yamim.
Adonai ma'adam v'teda ehu ben enosh v'chashvehu. O Lord, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath. Our days are as a passing shadow. We come and we go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed, in the evening it fades and it withers. You cause us to turn to dust, saying, return, you mortal creatures. Would that we were wise, that we understood whither we are going. For when we die, we carry nothing away. Our glory does not accompany us. Mark the wholehearted and behold the upright. They shall have peace. As many of you know, the biblical book of Psalms contains 150 poems, which along the way traverses the entire spectacle of human existence. And just as the last, the 150th Psalm, brings the Psalter to a magnificent conclusion with more words on the basis of hallelujah, praise, just as it brings the Psalter to a glorious conclusion, so too does the first of the 150 Psalms describe for us in powerful language and succinct language the nature of the good life and the fruits of that life. Happy are those who have not followed the counsel of the wicked, nor taken the path of sinners, nor joined the company of the insolent. Rather, the teaching of God is their delight, and they study that teaching day and night. They are like a tree planted beside streams of water that yields its fruit in its season, whose foliage never fades, and whose fruit always flourishes. Please join me in the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Kohelet in the 3rd chapter of the book of Ecclesiastes reminds us that for everything there is a season, a time for every experience under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. Cookie Morris, our beloved Cookie Morris, died this past Thursday, 3 days before her 83rd birthday. Cookie lived a full life, a life with people, a life of joys, and a life that had its sorrows. And those who admired and loved her will never forget her. Cookie was born and raised in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. After high school, she attended college for a year. Then at the age of 19, and after 3 years of courtship, she married a fine young man, George Morris. After they were married, Cookie accompanied George for 2 years, the 2 years of his military service for the Navy, after which the young couple moved to Highland Park in New Jersey, where George worked for the Connecticut General Life Insurance Company. Several years later, in 1969, George and Cookie moved to Cleveland, where George continued his career in the life insurance business. For many years, Cookie was a housewife, and when her children, Barry and Renee, came along, she continued as a stay-at-home mom. When her children were grown, Cookie and her dear friend Marilyn Beadall purchased and ran their own business with the name Office Placements. And knowing Cookie, as so many of us did, it should come as no surprise that she engaged easily with her clients and devoted herself to offering consistent first-class service. As a result, she had many grateful clients. And in a conversation that I had with Marilyn earlier this morning, Marilyn remarked that, and I quote her, "There was no one kinder or sweeter or easier to work with than Cookie. She was easy and smart," end quote. And once their business closed, due to the rapid advances of high tech, Cookie and Marilyn remained lifelong dear friends. Now, Cookie Morris was a person whom everyone loved, and we can well understand why. She had a lovely and calm disposition, a winning, warm smile, and an inviting, quietly energetic personality. Her effortless affability enabled her to make friends easily. And once you were Cookie's friend, you knew that she genuinely cared about you and about those you loved. And so upon seeing you the next time, she would regularly inquire about the well-being of members of your family. Cookie Morris enriched the lives of those she loved as you enriched her life. Moreover, Cookie was singularly devoted to her family, and she loved spending time with all of you. When I met with her family yesterday afternoon, I heard over and over again how much they adored her. And her son-in-law, Brian, powerfully distilled all that Cookie meant to her family. Here is what you, Brian, told me, more or less verbatim. Cookie was a constant in our lives, and the love she gave to her family was amazing. For her, there were never any lows, always highs, end quote. And when I asked Brian what he meant by never any lows, always highs, he said that Cookie was never depressed or overwhelmingly sad, although she sometimes had reasons to be. Rather, she was consistently positive, always there for her family, and always a pleasure to be with. But I also learned yesterday that Cookie, for all of her sweetness, was no pushover. When one of her children or grandchildren did something that she frowned upon, she would, now I'm quoting her family again, let you know. And though I didn't believe literally when I first heard the following, it turns out to be true. That Cookie was ready and able to wash your mouth out with soap if you said something rude or otherwise uncalled for. She taught her children and her grandchildren to treat everyone, friends, family, and strangers alike, with respect, and that it was important always to do the right thing. Nor, she admonished, and this she learned from her own mother, we should never go to bed angry. In this, as in all other things, Cookie was, and now I quote her family again, classy, elegant, and a high-quality person. And yet, life was not always kind to Cookie Morris. As those of you who knew Cookie well know, her last many years presented her with enormous challenges that might have vanquished a lesser spirit. Her beloved husband, George, contracted progressively debilitating Parkinson's disease the last 12 years of his life. And as expected, Cookie was always there for him, caring for him, gently helping him, making his life as comfortable and as meaningful as possible. George was deeply blessed to have Cookie by his side in those years, as in all years. And along the way, during those difficult 12 years, Cookie herself became ill with a serious illness that trailed her until the day she died. But throughout all these challenging years, Cookie remained resolute, in control, and uncomplaining. She learned how to manage on her own a necessary 30-minute nightly process through which, and only through which, she was able to get the nutrition she needed. And she was able to master that procedure that might have overwhelmed a less determined individual, and doing so with confidence and expertise, one evening after another, and for many years. And through it all, she never complained, never uttered a woe is me. On the contrary, if we can believe this, she thought of this arduous process as a gift, because, as she put it, this is why I'm alive. Cookie Morris, indeed, as I'm sure everybody here will agree, was much more than her illness. Her indomitable character, her loveliness, her graciousness, her sweetness always broke through. Cookie Morris is survived by her son Barry and Barry's fiancée Jennifer, by her daughter Renee and her son-in-law Brian, by her sister Sherry, by her grandchildren Matthew and Irene, Daniel and Nitzan, Chad and Zachary and Rima, by her brother-in-law and sister-in-law Carl and Eileen. She is also survived by her first great-grandchild, Shia, who was born yesterday in Jerusalem on Cookie's birthday. Life, new life, goes on. Cookie was predeceased by her husband, the love of her life for 55 years, George, by her parents, Murph and Pearl, by her brothers-in-law, Alan and Elliot. Cookie Morris lived a long life and a full life, a life of accomplishment, a life with people, a life through which she blessed the days and years of all who knew and loved her. We will never forget her. Zichrona livracha. The life of Cookie Morris will always be our blessing. Amen. I now want to call on Cookie's two children, one at a time. First, her son, Barry.
Ready? Okay. Good morning. Thank you, everybody, for coming out today to pay respects to my mother, Cookie. This gathering is a true testament to the love and so many friends and family have for her. It's an impossible feat to sum up the importance that one's mother has in one's life. My sister and I are touched by all of you coming out today. We're here to celebrate her life and accomplishments and her love for her family and friends. Mom passed away on Thursday, 3 days before her 83rd birthday, which was yesterday. We all wish we had more time with her. Although we know she's at peace and that her struggles are over, there is pain and sadness. But even though she's gone, she's left a legacy of love and perseverance. The way she touched our lives will remain, and I ask you to keep those memories alive. Family and her role as a mother and grandmother were so important to Mom, and that's where she drew her strength from. Her health had many obstacles, and she struggled through many surgeries several years back, but that strength gave her the ability to let it bounce right off of her, and it would have broken many other people. She was just a rock star. Even when Dad was living, and she had to manage her health as well as his. As the rabbi said, Mom was born in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. Nana and Papa, my grandparents, Pearl and Murph Wasserstrom, they raised a gem. My Aunt Sherry, who my mother just adored, gets credit for many good things in Cookie's life. I'm going to point out two of them. So the origin of Cookie's name. So her real name is Lois, but nobody knows that. When my grandparents brought my mom back from the hospital in 1940, Sherry said, "She's so cute, doesn't she look like a little cookie?" And it stuck, and from that day. My Aunt Sherry also gets credit for introducing the two of them. Dad and Sherry were friends at Wilkes College in Pennsylvania, and they had a world history class together, and she said to my dad, "Have I got a girl for you?" So at the time, my dad was dating somebody, but it didn't stop Sherry. She wasn't doing great in the class. She was on the verge of failing, as I believe. And she invited my dad over to study and at my grandparents' house. So my mom, who was 16 at the time, was home, and they met, and after studying, they hung out. They watched the Army-Navy game, which in our family is kind of their other anniversary. So it was a good story. And that love story continued for them. They spent years at Kutcher's Country Club in the Catskills, My dad was a waiter. My mom was a counselor. Her claim to fame was she was the counselor of Celtic great Red Auerbach, of his kids. But those were some of the happiest times of both their lives. My mom, with the ability to hang out with her guy in the Catskills. They were married on July 17th, 1959, and spent 55 years together. And I've never seen a couple that was more perfect for each other. I mean, 55 years of marriage. My sister Renee and I never saw them fight at all. And she just adored my father, and my father adored her. It was a real nice, loving environment to grow up in. And with my father's declining health, she was always there for him. In her younger years, she was active in temple and federation activities. She was proud to be Jewish and take pride in her grandsons, Matthew, Daniel, Chad, and Zachary, as they became bar mitzvahed. I've got great memories of growing up with my mom. I was her baby, and she always had my back, and I could never do wrong. Sorry, Renee. I always felt I could talk to her about anything, and it would be all okay. And the support. She loved coming to my baseball games and basketball games, and even as an adult, she was coming to my softball games. So really special. She was an avid tennis player. She started, when we moved to Cleveland in 1969. I believe she was playing tennis at Thornton and Mill Creek in the early 70s, and then Oakwood, and just leagues and matches all the time. And she was strong enough. She filled in with the guys' doubles games also. And then she loved bridge. When she stopped playing tennis, she played bridge 4 times a week. The childhood memories of vacations in, the East Coast, the 9-10 hour drives in the car, stops along the way to Washington or Williamsburg. It was kind of a scene out of Vacation. We were like the Griswolds. But she'd be the one in the back, disciplining Renee and I, because we'd always fight in the back seats. She was the kindest, most loving person I've known. She mothered everyone. She took it as a compliment and never shed away from being there for others who needed support in one way or another. As her son, I feel like I grew up in with the most incredible role model. And she taught me always to be myself and always push myself to learn more. Even in her last year, her presence was felt at her apartment at Vitalia. She was playing bridge, chair volleyball. She met a lot of friends. She put a group together to play canasta, and she taught them how to play. And so her presence was definitely felt. She went on field trips. And at Vitalia, she was able to get reacquainted with old friends and certainly build some new ones. As you know, I'm getting married in October. Jen and my mom have been able to spend a lot of time together. I found out from Jen's mom that Cookie told her that she knew this one was special. And that meant a lot to me. She loved Jen and was so excited about the wedding. She couldn't wait for the big day, but I know she'll be looking down. I saw my mom multiple times a week for many of the past years, and it could have been helping her with her supplies, hanging out with her at the house, Vitalia, bringing the dogs over, going to Costco, but it's just going to be a huge void in my life, obviously. I'm going to miss her. I know she's looking down, and she's already getting her strength and tenacity back. She's probably having her perfect day, waking up, watching the Today Show, playing tennis, playing bridge in the afternoon, and sipping a vodka gimlet with my dad. And it just makes me happy thinking about that. Although Cookie is no longer with us, I know that she lives on in the memories for everyone in this room today. She was strong, kind, and loving. I'll always treasure the time we spent, and she touched all of our lives, and we hold those memories forever. Thank you for all your love and support.
Cookie's daughter, Renee.
Thank you all for coming here today to honor Mom. I also want to thank those of you who are watching online. It means so much to us that you're here. To be the daughter of Cookie Morris is an extraordinary blessing. I never take that for granted either. I know how blessed and lucky I have been to have her as my strongest advisor, my life coach, my cooking teacher, my role model, my hero. She's the one that I call for any news, no matter how insignificant or enormous. I've thought so many times over the last few days, oh, I need to call Mom about that and tell her. That's kind of a gut punch for me. I imagine that will not stop. It's a hard, ingrained habit to break. I'm not certain who coined the phrase, one tough cookie, but I'm certain that they were talking about Mom. The definition of that phrase, a person who's able to deal with difficult situations and not be easily defeated, frightened, or upset. Put aside the last 12 years that she's had very unique and serious health concerns and difficulties. She was one tough cookie long before that. Mom had a few different phases of life. She was a very young bride and a very young mother. She stayed at home for many years and was the classic 60s and 70s mom. She baked the cookies, led the Girl Scout troops, and went to all of our activities. She's a fantastic amateur photographer, and there are years of pictures that she took of my synchronized swimming friends, Barry's baseball friends, cousins, and friends. The most meaningful were the pictures she took on our beach vacations. All of our friends loved her, and she loved them. She always knew the gossip and the stories about our friends, and she wanted the details right up to the end of her life. And then she decided to go to work. She was a very successful woman in business and held that career for almost 25 years. At the same time, she ran the house and still had plenty of time for tennis, bridge, and of course, the love of her life, Dad. They were the perfect couple, always so in love, and they had so much fun together. It was a joy to watch. Dad knew how special she was and always let her know. He made her laugh, and she always looked so lovingly at him. And she was one tough cookie. She always got what she wanted in a quiet, graceful ways. She made the plans and made sure he showed up. She gave him no choice. They never had a fight or an unkind word for one another in their entire marriage. It was an incredible example for us to grow up with. Mom created a beautiful home and life for us all. Delicious dinners on the table every night. No takeout unless Dad was playing tennis, and I think it was Monday nights. Beautiful, festive, incredible holiday meals and incredible family vacations, all perfectly planned. She planned the vacations and trips all over the world with Dad, and they had the greatest life together. But they didn't need fancy trips or vacations to have a wonderful life. They were happy with cocktail hour at home, playing tennis, being with friends at Oakwood or out for dinner, even playing gin rummy at the kitchen table. As still a relatively young woman, her health began to give her trouble. She took every stage in stride with class and grace and never a complaint about pain or her situation. There were years and years of multiple surgeries, almost 6 months in the hospital, and then the last 12 years where she managed her own health with her nutrition coming from TPN. Still no complaining. Mom just took every single challenge on and dealt with it with class, dignity, and strength. Our tough cookie kicked it into high gear. She took control at every turn. She was her own advocate and Dad's. She was his greatest loving companion and cheerleader as his health began to slide downhill. She couldn't have been more attentive and loving. Mom was by Dad's side for all of it and then tended to her own health. Mom took on a bit of a persona of being quite bossy, and I realized that that was her way of keeping control when life was quite out of control with regards to her and Dad's health. So she told us what to do at every turn, and that was okay. When our family grew as a result of our children's marriages, she fell in love with their spouses. First, Daniel married Nitzan, then Matthew married Irene, and then Zach married Rima. She loved them all, and they loved her. Mom made the decision to leave the home she loved on Lander Haven Court so she would not have such a big house to take care of. She moved into Vitalia Solon independent living last spring, and she really loved it. She participated in many activities, including chair volleyball, yoga, field trips, and happy hour. She knew a few of the residents and made more friends while she was there. Mom was so looking forward to meeting the newest member of our family, her first great-grandchild. Even when she was at her weakest, she kept asking about the baby and when was he coming since he was due this week. Mom just couldn't hang on any longer, and this past week was too hard for her. Her great-grandson, Shia Roth, was born in Jerusalem yesterday on Mom's 83rd birthday. It is of great comfort to all of us that we have a new life, and we will especially remember her on his birthdays. Mom had an incredible life, and one that can never be overshadowed nor defined by health problems. She was a loving daughter, sister, mother, mother-in-law, aunt, and grandmother. She will be forever in our hearts.
There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light. Long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us as we live our days. These are the ways we remember as we live our days. These are the ways we remember. יש כוכבים שלא מגיע ארצה, רק אשר הם עצמם עבדו ואינם. יש אנשים שזיו זכרם מאיר, כאשר הם עצמם אינם עוד בתוכנו. אורות אלה המאביקים בחשכת הליל, הם שמראים לאדם את הדרך. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember.
O God of life, amid the ceaseless tides of change which sweep away the generations, your love remains to comfort us and to give us hope. Around us are life and death, decay and renewal, the flowing rhythm that all things obey. Our life is a dance to a song that we cannot hear. Its melody courses through us for a little while, then it seems to cease. Whence the melody, and whither does it go? In darkness as in light, we turn to you, the source of life, and the answer to all of life's mysteries. As you are able, I invite you now to rise for the El Mole Rachamim.
El Mole Rachamim, shochen bamramim, hamsemenu chanechona tachat kanfei hashchina, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מסעירים, את נשמת ייחודית ליבה, בת משה ופרל, של הלכה לעולמה בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה. אהנה בה הרחמים אסתירך, בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, ותצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר אמן.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Cookie Morris, our loved one who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in the shadow of your wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace, and let us say together, Amen.
Amen.
You may be seated. I want to announce that Cookie's family will receive friends at the Vitalia Senior Living Community in Solon. They will receive friends today from 2 to 4 in the afternoon and 5 to 8 this evening, and tomorrow, Tuesday, from 1 to 4 in the afternoon and 5 to 8 in the evening. Our service will continue now at Graveside at the Mayfield Cemetery. Once again, thank you so much for your presence here with us this morning, which offers the family a great deal of comfort. This concludes our service.
I'm going to turn towards the